Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. As Hurricanes Irma and Jose barrel their way across the northern Caribbean, a localized weather system dumped some heavy showers on several areas of Barbados today, causing flash flooding. It forced the Met Office to issue a flood warning, which was since being discontinued. 8th Avenue, New Orleans, and Murphy's Pasture were among some of the areas which were flooded. Many residents who spoke to CBC off-camera are fed up with the constant flooding in their district, as it poses several health hazards.
We want help. We want somebody doing something about it, coming and looking into it and see what's really the problem. If it is, it's not the drains, what is really the problem, because it ain't good. You gotta be walking through this water, children playing, gotta be in this dirty on as we say, the rats, the rodents, different things, is what ain't good. I myself don't even let the water touch my feet. It's got me off. So I hear tell the sugar, I go on my feet for some clocks when they finish, because I don't know what linger in the water, so it wouldn't be good as health-wise for us, the mosquitoes, stuff like that. And mosquitoes like fresh water, so I really would like to see that to come and see what is the problem and see if they can get the problem rectified.
Drains blocked by garbage are being blamed to some extent for the flooding. And Industry Minister Donville Innes believes businesses can pitch in to clean the city.
I would like to see each enterprise in Bridgetown making an effort every month with their staff and their families to come and just clean their surroundings. Don't tell me you need a subsidy from government to do it. I believe that if you really care about your environment, you will do something about it without having to depend on government.
The government of Antigua and Barbuda has been enforcing a mandatory evacuation order for Barbuda. This as the two islands are again threatened by another major weather system. Sean Farrell is in Antigua and joins us live on the phone. Sean, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Shane.
Now, Sean, we're seeing all the pictures and the video footage coming in from Antigua, but it's another thing to be there. Can you explain to me the feeling, the emotion, what's happening on the ground in the country?
Well, Shane, I'm still trying to get a hold of myself and my feelings after what I saw today. It seems that many of the people in Barbados, they're still in a state of shock. Now, we enter the island, having heard from the Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, heard the other reports about the devastation there. But it's really a sight when you get there, and you see people, they're standing on what used to be a port with their bags. Obviously, that they've lost everything. Some were telling us that they've lost their clothing. They've lost not just their homes. They really have nowhere to go. Some of them are, I shouldn't say in a state of despair, because the government of Antigua and Barbuda has been trying very hard to see if they can get them out. And I believe by now most of the 1,800, or at least all of them, should have been transported to the main island Antigua. But it's just a sight to see. I mean, we toured the area with one of the Barbudans, and he told us that he just started a new business. I mean, he's been operating a business for a long time, and he hasn't even been able to come to grips with what has happened to him. He operated a restaurant that served food to some of the major ships that came in. He lost that. He had a fishing boat as well, because he used to use the fishing boat to support his business. He said the boat is somewhere turned over in a bay, and he's too unhappy and too sad to even go and look at it. So he's going to come to Antigua. He's going to relax, spend some time in one of the many shelters that have been provided here, and regroup, and he's probably going to,
Sean, I don't want to keep you too long, because I know you've been out the entire day on site. But how are Barbudans feeling, and Antiguans also, because we know Hurricane Jose is continuing on that path? I can't imagine what they would be thinking with something else coming directly for them.
Well, the sense of urgency today is what prompted the evacuation, the sense of urgency to get the people from Barbuda out. before Jose comes ashore. Really and truly, there's a lot of debris still laying around, and some of them, the majority of them, want to get out. They don't want to experience that again. Here in Antigua, they're happy that they've been spared. A lot of them are still saying, well, Jose is on the horizon, so we have to prepare. I actually heard two schools of thought, two feelings, two sets of sentiments about that. Some people are saying that there are others that are going around as if nothing has happened and nothing will happen. But, listening to the radio and watching television, I've seen reports of people hustling and bustling to buy their supplies and stock their refrigerators and stock their cupboards with supplies. So I think seeing that Antigua and Barbuda experienced a little bit, but Antigua, as I should say, a little bit of the system of Irma, and Barbuda clearly experienced a lot of it. I think that there's a general sense here that something could happen, and people want to prepare in case anything like that happens again.
Well, Sean, thanks for the good work and continue to stay safe. That's our Sean Farrell live from Barbuda. Personnel from the Barbados Defense Force will be working alongside the CARICOM disaster response team being deployed to hurricane-ravaged islands in the Leewards. Barbados-based Cbc is spearheading the response. Executive Director Ronald Jackson says they will provide operational and relief support to affected countries. Cbc is also sending a rapid needs assessment team to Antigua and Barbuda. Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas have already asked Cbc to be on standby to render assistance. During a press briefing, Mr. Jackson said the agency had to act and respond quickly as countries suffered widespread impacts to infrastructure, housing, and utilities. And it comes even as Hurricane Jose lurks nearby.
A team that is being deployed include water and sanitation specialists. People will be looking at the issue of hygiene, social protection. We have a fisheries and agriculture specialist that will look at the livelihood needs. Obviously, people's livelihoods will be disrupted, and we're going to have to look at how we provide support for them over the period until they can get back on their feet. We're also looking at debris management to come shortly thereafter. We're going to try to deploy those after Jose, rather than try to deal with the debris now and then again one more time.
Mr. Jackson was humbled by the outpouring of support as a number of islands deal with the aftermath of Irma. Cbc, as it continues to provide support, has set up an assistance fund where people can donate.
If you are carrying out any fundraising activities, I want to share with you the account, the Cbc account for the Emergency Assistance Fund that you can utilize. It's at CIBC or FCIB. The account number is 1333514, and that's the US dollar account. There is a Barbados dollar account for those who may be donating from Barbados, and that's 3666589. So we will provide more details and better particulars on the needs.
News now from Cuba. As Hurricane Irma approaches that country, authorities are telling Cubans to leave the coastal areas as conditions are expected to worsen.
You can lose power here for several weeks after a hurricane. Everything on this island is basically held together sometimes by duct tape. You have got a government that is short on funds. You have a U.S. economic embargo. You have power grids, buildings that have not been maintained well. So things tend to fall apart, go down very quickly here. We've been having trouble with our phones already, and the storm hasn't even begun to make that much of an impact. What Cuba does well, though, is they pre-position supplies just outside of the hurricane zone. So while the impact can be felt very, very hard on some of these old buildings, immediately resources will begin to pour in and help with the recovery.
Meanwhile, in Florida, officials are also urging the public to evacuate as Hurricane Irma is expected to make landfall this weekend. Though the evacuation is mandatory, some are insisting they'll ride it out.
Irma, destructive and deadly, turning right towards Homestead, Florida. Joel Melendez racing from window to window, house to house.
If you're financially stable and you're able to get out of here, get out of here.
Remembering this is what Hurricane Andrew did to Homestead 25 years ago. The Cat 5 nearly wiping his hometown off the map. This is a picture of Melendez's childhood home completely flattened. His family only survived by hiding in a neighbor's concrete house. He's boarding up homes for free.
It's traumatizing, you know? It's serious, you know? This ain't no game. You know, I feel for a lot of people that I can't help, that I can't get to because I'm only one guy, my brother and I, you know? So hopefully I made some type of change or I saved a life or two. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Across southern Florida, an ever-widening mandatory evacuation order. People packing up, crowding roads and airports to escape the hurricane. But options in Homestead, 30 miles south of Miami, are dwindling, right with the gas supply. One by one, gas stations closing and boarding up. Stay at your own risk, says Florida's governor.
We cannot save you when the storm starts. So if you're in an evacuation zone and you need help, you need to tell us now.
I got the big cans, the little cans, everything.
Kelson Bertrand is not heeding that order. Bertrand wasn't alive when Hurricane Andrew ripped through Homestead in 1992.
My plans is to just stay here, see where it takes us, because since this house stayed here for Andrew, I'm pretty sure it'll hold this hurricane.
She has weeks of food for her 15-month-old son, Caden, and stacks of formula, enough to feed her 4-month-old Aiden for months.
Could you be wrong? I mean, what happens?
I can be wrong.
What happens if you're wrong and it's too late to get out?
I just have to think positive. I have everything ready for them.
Kyung La, CNN, Homestead, Florida.
And meteorologist David Best joins us now. Bring us up to speed with those systems, David.
And a very good evening to you, Shane. But before we get to the activity, we had some localized convection over some sections of the island today. These types of scenarios tend to develop when we have these systems in close proximity to the region. They don't affect us directly, but what they do, they slacken the pressure gradient significantly. What that means is we have some very light winds, not only at the surface, but well into the upper levels of the atmosphere. Once the moisture levels are adequate, with the strong heating, we tend to get the convective process going, and today we had some huge cumulonimbus clouds developing over some sections of the island, central, southwestern, and as a result they dropped some heavy showers and some isolated thunderstorms on that section of the island. Now these showers are of a fairly short nature. Sometimes they last as much as about 2-3 hours, but we do not trivialize them. They can be very, very dangerous. Now the scenario could play itself out again tomorrow as the winds continue to be light. As long as the moisture levels are adequate, we will continue to but of course we will continue to keep you updated on that situation. Now again today we had three hurricanes in the Atlantic. Back on September 16, 2010, there were 3 hurricanes also in the area, and again that scenario has played out. But of course, we'll keep you fully posted on all the information. I'll be back in my segment. Shane?
Thanks, David. Well, Barbadians, along with the rest of the world, are watching the devastation resulting from Hurricane Irma. And many are considering us fortunate to have escaped its wrath. CBC News took to the streets today to hear how Barbadians felt about our apparent luck when it comes to dodging storms and hurricanes, and the popular refrain that God is a Bajan. You might find some of their views quite interesting.
I don't really feel God is a Bajan. I just feel we just be lucky, but I don't feel God is a Bajan. I don't. And I feel that we should give thanks when these things pass us.
You look after us. Real thing. And Barbados was getting escaped too long, and I feel we can get a wake-up call. It's about time we get a wake-up call too. Real thing. We can get a wake-up call. How much wickedness is going on every day, and they ain't praying. They don't know God.
I guess that we island is a flat island down underwater, sea level, and the rest over above sea level. That the storm is pull the trees and things pull the storm according to the place. And what part we is too, we off but we serve. You understand? But we gotta give thanks to the Almighty.
Yes, we are lucky for now, but eventually something have to happen because there's so much wickedness going on around here and so much things that we just can't understand, and it's time that Barbadians wake up. You understand? It's time that they should wake up because in at all times that the hurricane will pass us.
I don't know what to say about that. Yeah. But we should say that we blessed them. So, I don't think that we will get hit by hurricane. I won't wish for that to happen. That's what you should say.
In a small way, feel right. But to be truthful, I think that if everybody knows to live together, it'd be more secure. Because I believe that as a spiritual person, I believe that the energy is what makes everything happen. By the way, who everybody living is a possibility anything can happen in the future.
Okay, we'll take a short break here and come back with more news.
Persons going to emergency shelters are advised to take emergency kits, water and non-perishable food items to last at least 3 days, personal identification, and any medication they may need in waterproof packages. The Category 1 emergency shelters in St. Thomas are Les Devon School and Hillaby Turners Hall Primary. In St. George, the Category 1 emergency shelter is Cuthbert Moore Primary.
For a full list of shelters, visit www.gisbarbados.gov.bb or www.dem.gov.bb.
How is poor diet causing inflammation?
What people don't realize is things like bread, flour, carbohydrates can create problems with sugar and inflammation.
Basically, sugar equals inflammation in the body.
It affects your kidneys, your eyes, it affects your overall health.
You need products like Omega XL to help manage that.
To reduce your risk of disease, get your Omega XL today. Live long, stay strong with Omega XL.
Viewers, please note that CBC TV8 will carry live coverage of the CPL games at the following times. On August 30th and 31st, 8:02 p.m. September 1st and 2nd, 9:03 p.m. On September 3rd, 6 p.m. to resume at 7:30 p.m. after the CBC Evening News. September 5th through 7th, 8:02 p.m. and on September 9th, 9:03 p.m. For more information, log on to cbc.bb.
The Ministry of Education, Science, Technology and Innovation has made significant progress with the investigation into the results of candidates who wrote the Caribbean Examinations Council for May-June examinations in 2017. While there have been concerns in several sections of the community, the ministry is satisfied that the schools, officials of the CXC, and officers of the ministry have undertaken the steps necessary to ensure that all candidates who have met the criteria for the award of certificates will receive their grades. The ministry has found that a variety of reasons underpinned the circumstances in which some candidates were awarded ungraded results in the preliminary results issued following the correction of the examination scripts. CXC has been very cooperative and accommodating in facilitating the review of ungraded results. The Caribbean Examinations Council is continuing to work with the ministry to ensure that all candidates who have satisfied the 3 components of assessment for the award of certificates receive those certificates. The ministry has publicly commended CXC on the professional and expeditious manner in which its officials have addressed the various concerns raised as a result of this year's examinations. Although Hurricane Irma did not hit Barbados, the system is being blamed for damaging one of the historic plaques in Bridgetown. This plaque, which marks a spot where African slaves were offloaded and sold after journeying across the Middle Passage, was found laying flat on the Lewis Wickham Boardwalk this morning. It also bears a quote from a former slave who became a key voice among the abolitionists. Historian Trevor Marshall says the damaged plaque is disgraceful and believes it needs to be restored as soon as possible.
This is a memorial which does not offend. In fact, it elucidates, it enlightens, it even inspires, because Barbados was the distribution point for the entire British Caribbean. every single slave captured in Africa and brought on a British ship to this region was first landed in this island. The next thing that will happen is somebody might, unthinking, trip over it, yes, walk on it, spit on it, or horror of horrors, take it and throw it inside the careenage.
American tourist Jean Ramos and his wife were touring Bridgetown this morning and said they were sad to discover the damaged plaque.
There were people stepping on it, and you know, it's really important to this island because it is where where the slaves were dropped off. And like the gentleman said, 99% of the people here don't even know this plaque is here, and that is so sad. So I would like to see it back up.
Two key recommendations coming out of an actuarial review of the National Insurance Scheme have been rejected as impractical by the board's chairman. Dr. Justin Robinson says while he accepts the suggestions in principle, implementing them at this time would pose major challenges. Ken Jerson has that story.
A recent actuarial review of the National Insurance Scheme has recommended it reduce its holdings of government securities from 75% to 50%, and that 20% of the investment portfolio should be foreign investment. According to NIS Chairman Dr. Justin Robinson, the investment portfolio is around $5 billion. To have 20% of that, or $1 billion, as foreign investment, the NIS would first have to secure the foreign exchange from the central bank, which could compromise the country's foreign reserves and endanger the fixed exchange rate regime. As such, he says, this particular recommendation appears wildly impractical, at least in the near to medium term. As it relates to reducing NIS holdings of government securities from 75% to 50%, Dr. Robinson suggests that would be problematic. He contends it would face major challenges in the near to medium term and maybe even the long term, given the size of the NIS's investment portfolio and the context in which it operates. The NIS board chairman says if, as the actuarial review recommended, the investment portfolio comprised 50% government securities and 20% foreign investment, that would leave 30%, or $1.4 billion, for non-governmental investment. He argues that in a market with a tiny stock exchange and a virtually non-existent corporate bond market, a large portion of those funds would likely have to be held in low-earning fixed deposits or risky and illiquid private equity venture capital type investments. Dr. Robinson says while the NIS board and management are fully aware of the benefits of a diversified portfolio, the concentration of funds in government securities reflects the sizable surpluses being generated by the NIS, the need to generate adequate investment income, and the lack of viable investment alternatives due to the underdeveloped nature of Barbados's capital markets. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
Some advice for young Barbadians tonight. Don't let your future be dictated by what society says you should become. It's coming from Executive Director of the Barbados Renewable Energy Association, Misha Clark. Ms. Clark was the featured speaker at the Barbados Workers Union's Cooperative Credit Union Scholarship Awards at Solidarity House. There, several students who excelled in this year's Common Entrance examination were rewarded. There were also awards for those who performed well in CXC and CAPE examinations, as well as at the Barbados Community College. She used her life as an example for never following the status quo.
In my early professional life, I was faced with the challenge of conforming to the traditional status quo. As you see, a graduate of a Bachelor of Arts degree in history, to be exact, was never expected to pursue a career in international development, yet alone become the leader of a leading national non-governmental organization, an organization which at its core focus is much more aligned to scientific, engineering, or a business development background. The status quo predicted that as a student of the arts, and a history student more specifically in my case, could only ever pursue a career in teaching.
Ms. Clark also had some advice for the parents in attendance, telling them to continue supporting their children.
There are times that you will be required to support them, and support does not mean necessarily refer to financial support alone. But you will be required to take on the role as gatekeepers and protectors of your children's breakthroughs. Parents and guardians, please pray for your children and pray earnestly. The breakthroughs that God has in place for them often seem unattainable, but with prayer, anything is possible.
There's optimism Barbados can have an AIDS-free generation by 2024. That's the belief of the director of the National HIV/AIDS Commission, Jacqueline Wilshire-Gay. If achieved, she says it will coincide with the end of the National Strategic Plan for 2019 to 2024.
As we look into the future, as we look, what I could see in sight is an AIDS-free generation. That's what we're working towards. That's what is visible, and that is what is possible. Well, hopefully within the next decade, but I hope by the end of our next strategic period, we could say that Barbados is AIDS-free.
In the meantime, the Commission will be continuing its public outreach and education. After the break, we'll take a look at stories making headlines across the region.
There's a hero. If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. And there's an answer.
Thank you so much for helping us to make a difference in the lives of so many people here in the Caribbean.
Thank you so much.
So from all of us here in the Caribbean, we'd like to say a big
Celebrate and save this back to school with Bico. Enjoy Bico Double Delight French Vanilla 1 liter ice cream, now only $19.95 VAT inclusive. Barbados' best-selling French Vanilla ice cream for a limited time only at the unbeatable price of $19.95 VAT inclusive. This offer available from participating outlets island-wide, Bico Mobilers, and the Bico Direct Outlet on Harbor Road.
On this edition of Caribbean Passport, we look at the celebration of Diwali in Trinidad and Tobago, the Food and Rum Festival in Barbados. And to take a look at highlights from Antigua and Barbuda's 60th Carnival, we hear from Sir Royston Hopkin of Grenada as he talks about some of the challenges facing the tourism industry. All this and much more right here on this station.
Watch Caribbean Passport on CBC TV 8 this Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the users of the Cabo Star are challenging the government to get rid of the vessel now. They are also challenging the validity of the vessel's insurance to carry passengers.
Replace the boat, because it's definitely not working for us. You can't shower on the boat, no washroom facilities. This will cause people to get sick.
President of the Inter-Isle Truckers and Traders Association, Horace Hamid, was asked what would he say to the minister if he got the chance.
Get rid of that vessel and get rid of it now.
These men have been using the Cabo Star practically every available day.
Yesterday morning I was called 3 o'clock in the morning because they had no bathroom to use. It was locked. This resulted in some of the drivers using the face basin, some of them using the side of the vessel to urinate off the side of the vessel.
Their complaints are almost endless. The men contend the Cabo Star is filled with roaches, rodents and mites. But now questions are being asked about the vessel's clearance to carry passengers. Robert Tardio says the Cabo Star is a ro-ro classification, meaning it can carry cargo and crew only. It's not ro-pax, he says, which would allow passengers to be ferried. He's today questioning whether the vessel has been insured to carry passengers.
That vessel is a ro-ro
cargo and crew only, but they have passengers aboard the boat. Do you have the specific insurance? Was the boat rectified to be a RoPax? Or is it still a RoRo? If it is still a RoRo, something is definitely wrong.
Mr. Tardio is telling passengers they are travelling at their own risk. Assemblyman Farley Augustine holds the Port Authority accountable for the state of the sea bridge.
Need to fire the board, the entire board. And of course, if I was in charge of the cabinet, I will also fire the minister, because you have seen ministers fired for less. But I will start with the board, and perhaps if it was my decision to make, I'll drop the board in the bokas and ask them to swim.
Public servants in Dominica are to receive 2 months' salary as a one-off payment for arrears. This after the Dominica Public Service Union said it had concluded successful talks with the government. DPSU General Secretary Thomas Letang said that the collective agreement has already been signed. Letang says public officers will also receive a 3% salary increase for the fiscal year 2017 to 2018. Additionally, agreement was reached in several other areas, including an EC $20,000 grant towards training public officers, EC $8,000 grant towards the union's revolving fund, and a grant of EC $236,000 towards the union's medical fund and health insurance. The Barbados-based Caribbean Development Bank says it has started a new cycle of engagement with Haiti, following the approval by contributors of the Special Development Fund in December last year. CDB President Dr. Warren Smith reaffirmed CDB's commitment to support the country in meeting its development goals. Smith, who led a 2-member delegation to the country, discussed the bank's ongoing partnership with Haiti and opportunities for deepening the existing relationship and helping the country to achieve its developmental priorities. Mandatory evacuation is being enforced for residents of hurricane-ravaged Barbuda. Sean Farrell visited the island and filed this story.
Winnie Weber has lost almost everything as a result of Hurricane Irma, but she's one of the first to respond to a voluntary evacuation order issued by the government.
Well, when the chopper took us up, the pilot fly low that we could see, and it's real bad. There's no more Barbuda, no school, no post office where I work. The government, the council building, none. The hospital part of the roof has gone.
A lot of us have never ever experienced anything like that.
Experienced nothing hot like this, because it seems like we had earthquakes in it and tornado. But I was under a cement roof, my home, so I would have everything. I just lose a front part for my home.
Just as we finished speaking to Winnie, a vessel arrived at the port with more evacuees. Some were not happy to leave Barbuda.
If people want to move, they move. Who want to remain, they remain. And this is my concern. You know what I mean? But based on those statements that I'm hearing about, you have to buy law and you have to do those kind of stuff, I don't understand what that is coming from, because that is not what the freedom is all about.
The stories we heard about the devastation were so touching, we had to find a way to get there.
We finally made it to Barbuda, not by the means we expected. We came across on this private pleasure craft. It has lots of horses, about 35 knots. It came across the waters. We were going up and down, and the waves, of course, have us all soaked. Ronaldo Sargent, of course, I'm also soaked. We're trying to get out within the next 30 minutes because there's another threat on the horizon, Hurricane Jose.
But first, we had to take a tour of Barbuda. We saw firsthand what officials have described as an island that is now uninhabitable after being engulfed by the Category 5 system.
This is the local council building right behind me here. It's among many structures that have been destroyed by Hurricane Irma, and there are not many left here that have not been touched. Now, the government of Antigua and Barbuda, they have declared a state of emergency. They've also asked for a voluntary evacuation, and we understand that that is going to become mandatory with the threat of Hurricane Jose on the horizon. Now, many people here, they say that they are going to go, but there are some who still want to stay.
If you have to ask our good friends here from the police force to assist them or escort them to each of the aircraft or to the vessels that we have provided for them, then that's the case. So it's mandatory evacuation. There is no debate about it. We have to get all the people off of Barbuda. There's a Category 4 storm, Hurricane Jose, that is approaching both islands, and we're not taking any chance.
How many people have you been able to move so far, do you know?
I can't give you a definitive answer with that, but I'll say this to you. We moved about 550 yesterday afternoon into the evening, and this morning we started as early as 6 a.m. So my guess is we perhaps have another 400 to move off the island. There's about 1,800 persons as a population, but as you know, some of them reside in Antigua already. So the good thing about it is that we have good record keeping, where we're taking all the names of those we're evacuating. So when they get to Antigua, we know exactly who is left here and who's on in Antigua and Barbuda. So we're making a good account of all the transactions.
Meanwhile, Asot Michael, Minister of Tourism, Economic Development and Investment, says the evacuation effort has gone well.
We are very, very resilient people, and Prime Minister Brown have already written off to all of his CARICOM colleague heads of government asking for assistance. Assistance has been flowing. We wrote to Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada. Canada will also be assisting us. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela gave us 2 C-131 planes last night with relief material, mattresses, foods, lumber, everything. And we have a C-131 plane that just landed with us that will keep bringing people to evacuate the entire island every 15-20 minutes. It can hold 130 people, and they'll keep coming to Antigua. We've already made all arrangements with small hotels, houses in Antigua, and shelters, government shelters, to house the people of Barbuda and to make sure that they're safe.
Mr. Michael is saddened that all the hotel plant in Barbuda has been destroyed, but he says a rebuilding plan is in the works. Reporting from St. John's, Antigua, I'm Sean Farrell for the CBC News.
The government of Cuba has been making thorough preparations ahead of the arrival of Hurricane Irma. There are 2 Barbadian diplomats assigned to the embassy at Havana and 19 Barbadians on scholarship in Cuba at universities in Havana, Las Tunas, Santiago de Cuba, Sancti Spiritus, and Guantanamo. The embassy remains in contact with the Ministry of Cooperation and with the students. Those students who live off campus have been ordered to move back onto the campus. All have complied. The Cuban authorities have not indicated the need to evacuate any of the students from their campuses, but if this becomes necessary, there will be a plan in place. The embassy will remain in touch with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade and will continue to follow the instructions from the Cuban authorities. A glimpse into the world of sports is just ahead, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Trying to use the ATM during daytime hours. If you must use an ATM at night, take someone with you. This ATM safety tip is brought to you in association with the Royal Barbados Police Force.